The first time I saw the Kragoth refuse to enter a testing chamber, I thought the creature had finally lost what little remained of its already questionable sanity. For those unfamiliar with our methods here at the Valtorian Academic Excellence Institute, let me explain. The Kragoth is not your average security measure. Oh, this particular beast, approximately 3 meters of scales, tentacles, and what I can only describe as aggressive telepathy, has been our most reliable tool for detecting academic dishonesty for the past 70 standard cycles. The thing reads minds like you or I might read a menu at a subpar dining establishment, which is to say quickly and with mounting disappointment. My name is Qrix. I serve as the Vice Administrator of Academic Integrity at this supposedly prestigious institution, though after today's events, I'm questioning whether prestigious is the right word. Perhaps chaotic would be more accurate. It started on a perfectly ordinary morning during final examinations for advanced quantum mechanics. The Kragoth, who we'd nicknamed Sniffer because someone in facilities thought they were funny, was scheduled to make its rounds through the testing halls. Standard procedure. The creature would slither past each candidate. Its 6 eyes would glow that distinctive purple shade if it detected any form of mental cheating, and we'd remove the offender from the premises. Simple. Efficient, terrifying enough to keep most students honest. Except today, Sniffer flat out refused to go anywhere near testing chamber 17. What do you mean it won't go in? I asked Brelix, our senior handler, a squat Pelorian with 4 arms and absolutely zero patience for nonsense. I mean exactly what I said, Qrix. The thing took one look at the entrance and backed away like the chamber was radiating nuclear waste. Brelix's secondary arms gestured wildly, a sure sign of his frustration. I've been working with Sniffer for 15 cycles. Never seen anything like this. I rubbed my forehead ridges, feeling a headache forming behind my optical nerves. Who's testing in 17? Brelix consulted his data pad. 23 candidates. Mix of species. Vaxorians, Tellurians, a few Zephans, 1 Graxian, and 1 human. A human? I perked up at that. We didn't get many humans at the Institute. Their species had only recently joined the Galactic Academic Consortium, and frankly their reputation preceded them in ways that made most administrators nervous. Something about being aggressively clever and dangerously unpredictable. Yeah, name's Marcus Webb, transfer student from Earth's Northern Continental Academy. Perfect scores so far in every subject. Suspiciously perfect if you ask me. Now that was interesting. Perfect scores always raised red flags. Not because perfection was impossible, mind you, but because it was statistically improbable without at least some form of enhancement or cheating. I'd been in this job long enough to know that genuine brilliance and careful fraud often looked identical on paper. So you think the human is cheating and the Kragoth is somehow detecting that from outside the chamber? I asked. Brelix's eye stalks drooped skeptically. That's not how it works, and you know it. Sniffer doesn't get scared of cheaters, it gets excited. Hungry, even. No, this is something else. We stood in the corridor outside Chamber 17, watching through the observation window as the students hunched over their holographic test interfaces. The Kragoth sat behind us, making a low rumbling sound that I'd learned meant either contentment or deep existential dread. Hard to tell with telepathic monsters. All right, I said, making a decision I'd probably regret later. Pull the human out. We'll test him separately. Relix activated his communicator. Candidate Marcus Webb, please exit your testing station and report to the corridor. Through the window, I watched a figure stand up, tall by human standards, probably close to 2 meters. Dark hair, casual posture, and an expression that suggested he found this entire situation mildly amusing rather than concerning. Already I didn't like him. Marcus Webb stepped into the corridor, and several things happened simultaneously. First, the Kragoth made a sound I'd never heard before, something between a whimper and a hiss. Second, it scrambled backward so fast it crashed into a waste disposal unit. Third, every single one of its eyes turned from their normal amber to a bright, panicked orange. Well, Marcus said in surprisingly good Galactic standard, that's not a reaction I get often. Usually dogs love me. That's not a dog, I said flatly. That's a Class 5 telepathic predator, capable of reading surface thoughts, detecting deception, and inducing temporary paralysis in most sentient species. Neat, Marcus replied, looking at the cowering Kragoth with genuine interest. So it's like a psychic lie detector. Among other things, it's also supposed to be fearless. I glanced at the creature, which was now trying to hide behind Brelix despite being 3 times his size. This is unprecedented. Marcus stepped closer to the Kragoth, and I swear the thing tried to phase through the wall behind it. Fascinating. So my presence is causing it distress. Any theories? Why? Several, I said coldly. None of them favorable to you. Certain forms of mental shielding or psychic enhancement can cause adverse reactions in telepathic species. Such modifications are strictly forbidden under academic consortium rules. I don't have any modifications, Marcus said, sounding more curious than defensive. I'm completely baseline human. No implants, no genetic tweaks, no psychic training. Just a regular guy trying to pass his quantum mechanics exam. Then explain why our most reliable security measure is currently having what appears to be a nervous breakdown in your presence. Marcus shrugged. Can't explain it, but I'd really like to get back to my test if possible. Question 17 was just getting interesting. Brelix had been scanning Marcus with every detection device in his kit. He looked up, confusion evident in all 4 of his eyes. Qrix, he's clean, no augmentations, no active shielding, no prohibited technology. According to these readings, he's exactly what he claims to be. That's impossible. Something is causing this reaction. Maybe, Marcus said thoughtfully. The problem isn't what I have. Maybe it's what I don't have. I stared at him. Explain. Well, I'm not a xenobiologist, but from what I understand, most sapient species in the consortium evolved some form of baseline telepathic sensitivity. Not enough to communicate, but enough to have your thoughts exist in a way that telepathic species can read. Humans didn't evolve with any other telepathic species on Earth. We're completely isolated mentally. No natural defenses, but also no natural broadcasting. Brelix's eye stalks straightened with realization. A telepathic void. From the Kragoth's perspective, you wouldn't just be unreadable, you'd be an absence. A hole in the mental landscape. And predators don't like things they can't sense, Marcus finished. Makes us unpredictable, dangerous, from its point of view. I had to admit, the logic was sound. Disturbing, but sound. It would explain why the Kragoth refused to approach. To a creature that relied on telepathy, a human would be the equivalent of a sensory black hole, present but imperceptible. This presents a significant problem, I said. We cannot verify your academic honesty if our detection methods don't work on you. So trust me, Marcus suggested with a grin that made me want to throw something. Trust is not a word we use in academic integrity, Mr. Webb. Then test me a different way. Oral examination. Supervised hand calculation. Lock me in a Faraday cage with nothing but a stylus and polymer sheets if you want. I've got nothing to hide. Brelix and I exchanged glances. The human made a fair point. If he was willing to submit to alternative testing methods, we could still verify his knowledge. It would just require significantly more effort on our part. Fine, I said, but you'll be under constant direct observation. Any sign of irregularity and you're expelled from the institute. Sounds reasonable, Marcus agreed. Can I make one request though? What? Maybe move Sniffer there, to a different corridor. I feel bad that I'm stressing him out. Her, them? I don't actually know the Kragoth's pronouns. I looked at the telepathic predator, which was still pressed against the wall, looking thoroughly traumatized by the last 5 minutes of its existence. In 70 cycles of service it had faced down everything from armed insurgents to highly trained psychic operatives without flinching. And here it was, reduced to a quivering mass by one unarmed human student. Brelix, relocate Sniffer to the East Wing, make sure it gets extra rations and a psychiatric evaluation. As the handler coaxed the reluctant creature away, I turned back to Marcus. Chamber 22. You have 3 hours to complete your examination under direct observation. No technology, no reference materials, no communication devices, just you and the questions. Perfect, Marcus said cheerfully. Lead the way. As I walked him to the isolated testing chamber, I couldn't shake the feeling that we'd just stumbled onto far more significant than a simple case of academic dishonesty. Humans were new to the galactic stage, and we were still learning what made them unique. Apparently, being walking telepathic voids was one of those unique features. The question that bothered me was this: if one human could cause this kind of reaction in a telepathic predator, what would happen when more of them entered consortium space? What would it mean for species that relied on telepathy for security, commerce, or even basic communication? I sealed Marcus in Chamber 22 and activated the surveillance systems. Multiple cameras, audio recording, EM field monitoring, the works. If he so much as breathed wrong, we'd catch it. Through the observation window, I watched him crack his knuckles and bend over the test interface with an expression of genuine excitement. Like he was actually looking forward to 3 hours of advanced quantum mechanics problems. Humans. Incomprehensible even without the telepathic void issue. I settled in for a long observation shift, pulled up his test responses on my monitor, and started reviewing his answers in real time. Each solution was methodical, creative in its approach, and absolutely frustratingly correct. No hesitation. No references. Just pure problem solving. Either Marcus Webb was exactly what he claimed to be, a legitimately brilliant student, or he was the most sophisticated cheater I'd ever encountered. 3 hours later, I still couldn't tell which. Marcus Webb completed his quantum mechanics examination with 47 minutes to spare, which was either impressive or deeply suspicious. I still hadn't decided which. All done, he announced through the chamber's communication system, leaning back in his chair with the casual confidence of someone who either knew everything or knew he'd fooled everyone. Want me to stay put, or can I stretch my legs? Stay exactly where you are, I replied, already pulling up his completed exam on my terminal. Brelix had rejoined me in the observation room, looking considerably less stressed now that the Kragoth was safely traumatized in another wing of the facility. How'd he do? Brelix asked, peering over my shoulder with 2 of his eyes while the other 2 monitored the surveillance feeds. Perfectly, I said, the word tasting bitter in my mouth. Every single answer is not just correct but elegantly solved. He used methodologies I've only seen from doctoral candidates. So he's cheating. That's the logical conclusion. Except we've monitored every possible avenue of fraud. No subdermal implants, no quantum entanglement communicators, no encoded messages in his body language. The chamber is shielded against every known form of remote assistance. Unless he's invented an entirely new method of cheating, he's clean. Brelix made a clicking sound that indicated deep thought in Pelorian culture. Or he's just that smart. Nobody is just that smart, Brelix. Not across every subject. Not without years of specialized study. Humans are new to us, Brelix pointed out. Maybe their cognitive baseline is higher than we've estimated. Or maybe they process information differently. That telepathic void thing might be connected to how their brains work. I pulled up Marcus's academic files, scanning through his records from Earth. Standard childhood education, no special programs, no identified genius markers. He'd been an average student until approximately 2 standard years ago, when his performance had suddenly skyrocketed. Every subject, every test, perfect or near perfect scores. Look at this, I said, highlighting the timeline. Something changed 2 years ago. People don't just spontaneously become geniuses. Unless they do, Brelix suggested unhelpfully. Through the observation window, Marcus was now balancing a stylus on his finger, looking thoroughly bored. He caught me watching and waved. I activated the communicator. Mr. Webb, I have questions about your academic history. Shoot, he said, still balancing the stylus. 2 years ago, your performance improved dramatically across all subjects simultaneously. Can you explain this sudden change? Marcus's expression shifted slightly, the casual amusement replaced by something more thoughtful. You want the truth or the comfortable answer? I always want the truth. All right then. 2 years ago, I nearly died. Medical emergency, brain hemorrhage, the whole dramatic thing. Spent 3 weeks in a coma. When I woke up, something was different. Information just makes sense now in ways it didn't before. Patterns jump out at me. Connections between concepts that seemed unrelated become obvious. You're claiming brain damage made you smarter? I ask skeptically. I'm claiming that whatever happened during that medical event rewired something upstairs. The doctors couldn't find anything structurally different in my scans. But functionally, yeah, I process things differently now. Faster, more completely. Qrix accessed Earth's medical databases, searching for Marcus's records. After a moment, he nodded. He's telling the truth about the medical event. 3 weeks at Mercy General Hospital in Chicago. Diagnosis was spontaneous cerebral hemorrhage with full recovery. Neurological scans post-recovery showed no abnormalities, but his cognitive function changed, I said. Apparently, human neurology is still poorly understood by consortium standards. They don't have the telepathic structures most species develop, so their brains compensated by evolving in other directions. More processing power dedicated to abstract reasoning, pattern recognition, creative problem solving. If something disrupted and then reorganized those neural pathways during recovery, who knows what might have happened? I studied Marcus through the window. He'd stopped playing with the stylus and was now watching us with those unsettlingly direct human eyes. Most species found prolonged eye contact aggressive or intimate. Humans seem to use it as a standard communication tool. So you're suggesting we have a student who's not cheating, but who possesses cognitive abilities that give him an unfair advantage over other students? I asked. Is it unfair if it's natural? Qrix countered. We have Vexorian students with photographic memory, Tellurians with enhanced mathematical cognition, Zephons with 4 times the standard processing speed. We don't penalize them for their biology. Those are species-typical traits. This is an individual anomaly, an individual human anomaly. We don't know enough about human neuroplasticity to say whether this is anomalous or just uncommon. For all we know, this kind of post-trauma cognitive enhancement happens to lots of humans. I drummed my fingers on the console, considering options. The Kragoth had been our ironclad method for detecting fraud for 70 cycles. It had never been wrong, never been fooled, never failed, until today. And the reason for its failure had nothing to do with cheating and everything to do with species incompatibility, which meant we'd been operating under a false assumption. We'd believed our detection methods were universal, applicable to all sapient species. Marcus Webb had proven otherwise, and if one human could slip through our security net, others could too. This is going to require a policy revision, I muttered, already dreading the administrative nightmare ahead. You're going to let him pass? Qrix asked. I don't have grounds to fail him. He completed the examination under direct observation, with no detected fraud. The fact that our standard detection methods don't work on his species is our problem, not his. I activated the communicator again. Mr. Webb, pending final review, your examination appears satisfactory. You're free to return to your quarters. Thanks, Marcus said, standing and stretching. Hey, before I go, can I ask you something? What? Why do you use a telepathic predator for security anyway? Seems like there'd be less terrifying options. Because fear is an effective deterrent, I replied. Students are less likely to cheat when they know a mind-reading monster will detect their dishonesty. Makes sense, I guess. Though you might want to consider that fear-based systems only work on people who can be sensed by the thing they're supposed to fear. Humans are going to be a blind spot for Sniffer, no matter what you do. He had a point, which irritated me. Do you have an alternative suggestion? Marcus thought for a moment. Back on Earth we handle academic integrity with a combination of supervised testing, randomized question banks, and honor codes backed by serious consequences for violation. Low tech but effective, plus it works regardless of biology. Honor codes, I repeated flatly. You're suggesting we trust students to police themselves? Worked for thousands of years in human academia. Well, mostly worked. There were definitely cheaters, but the system caught most of them eventually. Qrix made an amused sound. Your species bases institutional integrity on voluntary compliance with ethical standards. That's either admirably optimistic or catastrophically naive. Probably both, Marcus admitted with a grin. But hey, we made it to space, so something must have worked. I unlocked the chamber door. You're free to go, Mr. Webb. But understand that you're now flagged in our system. Any future examinations will be conducted under enhanced observation protocols. Fair enough, he said, stepping into the corridor. For what it's worth, I really am just trying to learn. The cheating thing, not my style. Too much effort for too little payoff. He walked away down the corridor, hands in his pockets, looking for all the world like someone without a care in the galaxy. I watched until he turned the corner, then collapsed into my chair with a heavy sigh. This is going to change everything, I said to Brelix. How so? Think about it. Humans are telepathically undetectable. That makes them invisible to half the security systems in consortium space. Banking, customs, law enforcement, military installations. Any system that relies on telepathic scanning is going to have a human-sized hole in its coverage. Brelix's eye stalks drooped with realization. Oh no. Oh yes, and that's assuming humans remain rare in consortium space. Their population back on Earth is what? 9 billion. If even a fraction of them decide to explore the galaxy, we're going to have millions of telepathically invisible beings, moving through systems designed with the assumption that everyone can be mentally scanned. That's a security nightmare. That's an opportunity, I corrected, my administrative mind already spinning possibilities. Humans will need specialized security protocols. Someone will need to develop, implement, and oversee those protocols. Someone with experience in academic integrity and knowledge of human cognitive capabilities. Brelix caught on quickly. You're thinking of pivoting your career. I'm thinking the Veltorian Academic Excellence Institute is about to become obsolete compared to the opportunities available in human integration consulting. Every institution, corporation, and government agency in the consortium is going to need expertise in human security protocols within the next decade. So Marcus Webb, the student who broke our security system, might have accidentally launched your next career, Brelix said with amusement. Accidentally. Nothing. That human knew exactly what he was doing when he suggested honor codes and low-tech solutions. He wasn't just answering my question, he was demonstrating the problem and offering himself as proof of concept for the solution. I pulled up Marcus's file again, looking at it with fresh perspective. Perfect scores across every subject. A medical event that enhanced his cognition. Cooperative attitude, despite being under investigation. Helpful suggestions about security alternatives. This wasn't a student trying to cheat the system. This was someone who understood systems well enough to see their flaws and smart enough to position himself advantageously when those flaws became apparent. Brelix, pull up enrollment data. How many other human students do we have at the institute? He checked his datapad. Currently, 14. Another 37 have submitted applications for next term, and none of them have been flagged by the Kragoth. Correct. Because we didn't know to look for the problem until today. So we potentially have 14 students who've been taking examinations under Kragoth's supervision, all of whom were completely invisible to our primary security measure, and none of whom have been caught cheating, which means either they're all honest, or they're all getting away with it. I laughed. A harsh sound that startled even me. You know what the funny thing is? I don't think they're cheating. I think they're just that smart. Humans spent millennia developing technology without any telepathic assistance. No mental shortcuts, no psychic intuition. They had to figure everything out the hard way, using nothing but observation, experimentation, and abstract reasoning. That kind of evolutionary pressure doesn't create a species of cheaters. It creates a species of problem solvers. So what do we do about Marcus Webb specifically? I closed his file with a sense of finality. Nothing. He passed his examination legitimately. His presence exposed a critical flaw in our security infrastructure, which is actually valuable information, and he provided useful suggestions for addressing that flaw. From an administrative perspective, he's been the most helpful student I've encountered all term, even though he terrified Sniffer, especially because he terrified Sniffer. That poor creature has been getting complacent. Good for it to remember that the universe contains things beyond its ability to perceive. Brelix gathered his equipment, preparing to return Sniffer to its normal duties in the wings where humans weren't testing. You really think this human integration consulting thing could work? I think change is coming whether we're ready or not. Humans are here, they're telepathically invisible, and they're smart enough to exploit every system designed without them in mind. Someone's going to need to bridge that gap. Might as well be me. I spent the rest of the day drafting preliminary proposals for human-adapted security protocols, reaching out to colleagues at other institutions, and researching Earth's academic integrity systems. The more I learned, the more convinced I became that Marcus Webb had accidentally handed me the blueprint for the next phase of my career. 3 days later, I received a message from the Consortium Security Council requesting consultation on human integration challenges. Apparently, customs officials at the Proxima station had encountered similar problems with their telepathic screening systems. Humans were setting off alerts simply by existing, creating bottlenecks and confusion. I accepted the contract with a smile. 6 months later, I'd left the Veltorian Academic Excellence Institute to establish the first consortium consulting firm specializing in human integration protocols. Business was excellent. Turns out everyone needed help dealing with the telepathically invisible problem solvers from Earth, and I made sure to send Marcus Webb a thank you message for inspiring the career change. He responded with a single line: "Told you honor codes work." Also, Sniffer doing okay. I had to laugh. Even when accidentally revolutionizing interspecies security protocols, humans somehow managed to be concerned about the well-being of the telepathic predator they'd traumatized. Incomprehensible species, absolutely incomprehensible, but profitable. Very, very profitable.